opening night. Andrew.
Yes, sorry, just consulting my notes there.
That's okay. Yeah, I know. Well, we've just finished up with Angela.
Yeah.
And, my goodness.
Yeah, 9 kilometres of, what is it, twine string, what would it be?
9 kilometres, just under 9 Ks of cotton, 8.7.
Cotton, yes.
8.7 of black cotton.
Yeah.
For that artwork that she was so very gracious to bring in and just let
here
it
to my house.
Let it have it here. 9 Ks.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Pretty much.
I couldn't walk 9 Ks. How have you been?
No, all good, all good. Yeah, I mean, it's been a very, I guess, uneventful week for me though. I've been pretty much looking after my kids this week, so
yeah, nice.
Which has been more so kind of like Herb Dean UFC vibes at the moment, but we're all right.
Right, as in
my kids are just
stuck
at home and
just
at it, you know.
Yeah,
so
okay.
The weather's been terrible.
I was going to say, it's not school holidays though, is it?
No, but they had parent-teacher interviews and stuff.
Oh,
and,
yeah, of course.
We obviously with our new child coming in to our family and stuff, and my daughter being home, and it's just been a real mucky time. That's kind of
good to get some consistency and stability.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Start my new job next week and hopefully get some routine.
Nice, man.
Early starts, I'll have to get used to that.
Yeah, early starts will take a bit of getting used to. No, that's cool. Congratulations, man. That's wicked. So we're 6 podcasts deep now.
Yeah.
And we're really on a good roll at the moment. The engagement is really, really high. It's really positive. It looks like Wendy's one, which is coming out on Thursday, is going to be really popular as well.
Cool.
We've had a few good comments on Facebook, and also had a lot lot of the thumbs up and the hearts,
the likes and the love reacts,
the likes and the love reacts. Yeah, I don't really get
the
social
lingo
media.
locked down.
No,
come on,
well,
bro.
you take care of all of that social media
lingo.
handles and stuff like that. That's your thing. It's not me. I just come in and talk to people. You guys make me look great. Angela Rowe. Yeah. Wow, what a fascinating journey she's been through.
Yeah, man.
Amazing. Sorry, a little bit of indigestion there. So just sort of hearing how she started, and how she, I guess, had always been creative.
Yeah, for sure. And like her, once again, it's another, I guess, biology background almost, to do with her picking up shells and stuff and being fascinated by, I guess, nature's form of art as well, which is really cool to
so it's another one now. She didn't say the one thing that every other artist has said so far,
I know.
And we spoke about that last week.
We're going to have to start a tally somewhere.
Yeah, we will, yeah. Am I rambling? Am I rambling tally? Yeah. No, she was so cool, and she just gave so much as well, which was really cool. And she's got such an interesting perspective, and the collective she's got, I think, is such a super cool idea.
No, for sure. Like, there's not many people that would kind of volunteer their time in that facet as well, like to the extent that she has or is going to as well. Which is the time she's given up in the past, but also with funding coming up for the future as well. So I mean, that's really cool. A lot of good takeaways out of it too. A lot of refreshing points of view as well on art.
That was I think that's definitely a big one for me, was just seeing her perspective on art and her creation, and right at the start, she was like, "This, I just consider this a portrait." And it's not anything of any type. It's just that was a portrait. And I was like, okay, cool. Amazing to see, and such a huge depth of knowledge as well. And I couldn't have asked for anything more, really. She was lovely. So without further ado, let's sit down and have a conversation with the wonderful Angela Rowe. Angela Rowe.
Yes.
Welcome to the Northland Artist Conversation. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. And I'm sorry it's taken us this long. Obviously, we had a few issues last time with some sickness. So thank you for actually, being cool enough to come back. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem. It's the way it is at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it's definitely the season for flus, and obviously COVID's still kicking around as well. But yeah, such is life, really. Mm-hmm. So yes, once again, thank you for joining us. And the viewers are going to see this absolutely amazing. Now, I want to call it a tapestry, but it's not. It's an embroidery. What's thread art, really, isn't it?
I call it a portrait.
A portrait. There we go. A portrait. Okay, so people are going to see this through our wide camera there. They're going to see this lovely portrait. Now, I did just want to talk about it really quickly because obviously before we started, you've given me some incredibly amazing facts. So this is a portrait of yourself taken that you kind of did during lockdown. Yeah. Yep. And how many meters of thread did you use?
8,700 meters of thread.
8,700 meters.
And it's the first one that I actually kept track of my material use and the time I was working on it.
And this is also award-winning as well, is that right?
I was a finalist.
A finalist.
Yeah.
That's so cool, though. So yeah, truly amazing that you're able to bring this in. Thank you so much. And there's another couple of pieces over there as well, which we'll get up on the display screen as well. So we'll cover off a few details about you. Your name is Angela Rowe.
Yes.
Yes. And you have a very cool Instagram handle.
Pretty Mermaid's Purse.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the story behind Pretty Mermaid's Purse?
Well, I've been blogging for many years, since like 2004, when it sort of was just taking off.
Yeah.
And my blog initially was Mermaid's Purse.
Okay.
That was my name, my blog name.
Right.
And that became my name for lots of other things. Do you know what a mermaid's purse is?
I've not. Well, that was actually going to be your next question. What is a mermaid's purse?
Well, a mermaid's purse. So I have a long history of being very passionate about marine organisms and the ocean and marine life. And a mermaid's purse is the egg case from a shark or a skate. And they have the name mermaid's purse because they sort of have this shape, which is this oval sort of shape, and on the either end of the oval are these long curly tendrils which attach themselves to seaweed or rocks or other things in the bottom of the on the sea floor.
Yep. Okay.
And reefs and so on. And then that's where the little embryo shark grows and develops, or the skate, and it's called a mermaid's purse. People didn't know what they were.
No.
And they resemble some kind of purse.
And that's why, I think that's why the team as a whole, we love doing this project, because we all get to learn so much. So anyone here know what a mermaid's purse was? Andrew's saying yes. Rocky's like, no. Mark Presenter's like, no. Not at all. Yeah. So you obviously have a long-standing love of marine biology and stuff like that. And how far back does that kind of go?
Oh, well, when I was a kid, I used to go to the beach and spend a lot of time with my grandparents, and we would go to the beach. That was our summer way of passing time and spending the days. I grew up always being at the beach, and my grandparents moved up to Snells Beach when I was about 8.
Okay, yep.
And so that's where we would go for summer.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the regular family thing?
That was the regular family thing, and I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau and Our World, and learning about the marine environment. David Attenborough. I think I just loved Jacques Cousteau, though. He was trying to find Atlantis, or he was, on these other quite imaginative adventures.
Yeah. He was always... I think with Mum and Dad, it was always, I think, Our World on a Sunday night. Is that right? So whenever that was on, we'd always sit down and watch it. And I always distinctly remember David Attenborough. I knew of Jacques Cousteau as the marine explorer. Would that be fair?
Yes, I think he started out more as an explorer, and then over the years he became more concerned about the damage to the environment and what the impact of human impact in that world. Yeah, and I think that really affected his long-term
outlook
work
on life and things. Yeah. So obviously he sort of transitioned through life from one field sort of into another, which is very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to make sure I've got this right. When I was 8, I made a poster and put it in my bedroom window.
Yeah.
What was the poster for? What inspired you to do it?
I was really, really worried about blue whales.
Okay, yep.
Probably other kids, maybe other people in the 80s might remember that they were right on the verge of extinction.
Yes, I do.
And I was so worried. And I was like, I want to grow up and join Greenpeace, and I want to help save the blue whales.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing all this damage.
Yep.
And I was really worried. So I made this poster on this piece of paper. My parents were pretty thrifty, I think, and it was this paper on one side. It had like shiny print for dearest dust.
Oh yeah.
And on the other side, we had this massive stack that were not used stack of papers that were for us kids to play around with. And so I made, and it was long.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is great. I can fit a blue whale all the way along because they're really big.
Yeah.
And I put it in my window, which was probably obscured by trees. And I was like, I want to join Greenpeace. Don't know what I'd do with any money I'd raised from my school friends, but I was like...
Did you do the fundraising in school?
I don't remember. I don't think it was a thing that we did at my school. I remember 40-hour famine, but I don't remember anything for blue whales.
Did the 40-hour... I think we did a Greenpeace thing at primary school, maybe intermediate, but yeah, definitely did the 40-hour famine a few times for the starving children in Africa. Such a good cause. They still do it.
Do they?
Yeah. My son and I went to see a movie a couple of weeks ago, and on the screen there was all these celebrities still talking about the 40-hour famine.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I was like, oh, that's cool. Can't do it now. That's another story. Yeah. So you have this long-standing passion for marine biology and a deep connection with the sea and the ocean and that sort of stuff. How does that sort of migrate across into what you do now?
I think on a practical level, I talk with my kids and we pick up rubbish at the beach, for one thing. When we're there, we're like, well, we're here, we'll do what we can.
Yeah.
And I also talk with them about, after a wash-up, what we see when we're walking along the beach together, what that tells us about what's happening in the ocean that we can't see because we're not marine animals. It's not a habitat that serves us or that's safe for us. So we still do those little things. But I think the way that it's worked itself into my practice is while I was doing my master's, which I finished in 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I finished with a project called I Used to Find Dead Insects in Your Pockets.
That was the name of the project?
That was the name of the project.
Okay,
and that was the name of the final submission and the exhibition, which I also toured at at Jeff Wilson Gallery afterwards. Just when we were in a lockdown, like in one of the windows between lockdowns.
Yeah.
And that title came from conversation I was having with my mum about the research I was doing with regards to memories I had as a child of things I did with my nanas.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my nanas used to have me out in the garden with her all the time. Yep. And she would go around and we'd find insects, we'd find plants, and I'd come home after being at Nana's place like filthy.
Yeah, of course.
And then Mum would be like, Mum said, and I would take your clothes off and I used to find dead insects in your pockets in horror. And I was like, that really spoke to like my relationship with my nanas and the grounding that we had.
Yeah.
And then, so a few years before doing my master's, my last living nana passed away.
Right.
And I was helping my mum sort through the house and my grandparents' house, in which I'd lived there off and on, and so it was very much like sort of a grounding place for me as well.
Yep.
And then I found all kinds of things, as you do when you do a process like that. But I found jars and jars of shells.
Mm-hmm.
I found these golden oyster shells, which I remember collecting with my nana.
Yep.
And I think that was around Stanmore Bay. So all of these memories are kind of located around the East Coast, northern East Coast.
Yeah.
And I remember walking the beach with my nana, and we were looking for this one type of shell.
Yeah.
And so we just disregard all others. We want these golden oyster shells, and they're so beautiful. They really, and I don't see them very often now.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my goodness. And I remembered these times that I'd spent with my nana, and I remembered thinking about where I was and these sort of values and connections between people and place.
Yeah, definitely.
And so for my final submission for my master's, I included, I gave it the name from my mum. Yes. I included these stories. I did storytelling and story collecting as part of my practice for my research.
Yeah.
So these were some of my stories, some of my children's stories, and other people in my family's stories.
Cool.
But I exhibited an installation that included these jars of shells that my nana had collected.
That's the installation that was in the window at the gallery?
No, that was a different one.
It's a different one.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah. So I used to find dead insects in your pockets that included jars of shells that I'd collected with my nana, and then it also included other shells that I'd collected with my children, and it had and I just sort of blurred that line between memory and story and how we use our memories to form our identity.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, when we're going back and reliving childhood memories, we tend to view things in a very particular way as well.
Yeah.
I know that for my grandparents, I'm exactly the same as well. All three of mine have passed, and when I was afforded the opportunity to speak at the funerals, I just had very different memories, because I remember we'll remember these really obscure things about them. Like my nana was she lived in San Francisco, so whenever she flew over to New Zealand, it was always like, oh my god, and everyone had forgotten about that, and it's like, well, that's the takeaway that I had from the nana, and but as kids we kind of remember, we hang on to those important memories, and that they are really important. So you got a master's. What was the master's in?
And it was a Master of Fine Arts.
Oh wow, where did you do that?
I did it through Whitecliffe College of Art and Design. So they're based in Auckland.
Oh, amazing.
And they offer a low residency master's programs.
Okay.
Which is great, because there isn't anywhere in Whangarei doing master's programs.
No.
There's only just the end of the applied arts degree happening now.
Yeah.
So that was really good. They've got a really well developed low residency program.
How long did it sort of take to get through the whole master's program?
It's 2 years full time.
Oh wow!
But
okay.
it's based on the idea that by the time you're doing a master's, you're probably working. You'll probably have a whole life going on.
Yep.
So you've finished any undergrad, or you're coming back to study after years. So it's based around the idea that you're a professional, or you're a busy working person, or family person.
Oh, nice.
So
okay.
There's a lot of flexibility, but it's also a lot of work.
Yeah, I could imagine. Because full-time study of any description can be a lot to take on as well. What led you there? Like we've obviously we're going to jump around quite a bit. You're living, when you were a kid, you're living in
I was living in Auckland, so I was living in like Linfield.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to Linfield High School?
I didn't go to high school in Auckland, no.
Oh,
I went
goodness.
Well, yeah. I went to Halsey Drive Primary School.
Yes.
And then a bunch of family things went down, and my grandparents moved to Snells Beach.
Yes.
And I was I went to Whitecliffe Intermediate for like 6 months or something, a short time.
Yeah.
And then I went and moved and stayed with my papa and nana at Snells Beach for a while. Yep. I don't even know how long. And then the rest of the family moved north to Snells Beach as well. And I think then I started at Whangarei College.
I know Mahukol. Lovely area. Yeah, I've got friends that live in Warkworth, and they speak incredibly highly of Mahukol.
That's good.
Yeah.
Had a different reputation when I was
going to say, I have a funny feeling things have changed somewhat.
Yeah.
Now, you've done your time in Linfield, family all migrates north, you're in Mahukol. When does the artistic bug sort of start capturing you? Is it early on? Is it a bit later on in the piece? One thing, having talked with people, is that We've had some people where it's like, well, I studied science and then discovered art later on. We've had one person that didn't discover art until like 16 years ago. So everyone's journey towards art is very different. What's yours?
Well, I'd always made things, drawn things and stitched things.
Made posters.
Designer, graphic designer.
Graphic designer.
Yes. No, I had learnt to sew. I used to do a lot of things with my hands. I like to make things.
Yeah.
I'm not good at keeping my hands still.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned that. Anyway, so I've always made things and stitched or drawn and painted and all kinds of things. So I did that all as a kid.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed art and horticulture were my favourite things when I was at high school.
Okay.
I had Mr. Whangarei, who was formidable at Whangarei College, but he was a good painting teacher.
Yeah.
And then I had Mrs. Francis, who was pretty insane.
Right.
She was very much your cliche art teacher.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say insane. She was wild. She had great hair and always covered in paint.
Yeah.
So I did. I used to hang out in the art room at lunchtime and on that. So
the art space was your safe place in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is it's often that way. For me, it was the drama club.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I was terrified of drama and going on the stage. It was like my worst nightmare.
Yeah, it seemed to be mine.
But you did it.
I did it anyway. Well, during drama club, during lunchtime, you got to watch movies for free. I mean, how could I say no?
Oh man, we didn't have lunchtime movies. We were like walk around the sports field for 40 minutes or something.
So you're in high school. You finish high school, and you've sort of started diving a little bit more into your talent by spending a lot more time into art class. What are your disciplines that you're sort of favouring at that point in time?
Oh, well, I actually left high school at 16.
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't, it didn't look like an option for me to go to university.
Right.
That was right at that point where I don't think it was no longer free. My family didn't have any money, and so my options were basically leave school, get a job. And I thought, I would love to go to art school one day. Mm-hmm. And I knew about Whitecliffe. They were like a smaller school, but they were a private school at that time.
Yeah, okay.
So they sounded good. They also had that kind of traditional art school feel about them.
Yeah.
So you could learn painting, you could learn to draw, you could learn all of those skills.
Yeah.
So left school at 16, got a couple of like part-time jobs, worked at a bakery, worked at a cafe, did all that sort of thing that you do in a small town.
You do,
when there's not many other options. And then I moved back to Auckland when I was 18.
Okay.
And did whatever work I could get so that I could pay my rent and pay my petrol.
Yes.
And then I got a job as like a signwriter's apprentice, like old school signwriter, so hand painting signs.
Stuff. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so I did a little bit of that, but my main, the guy I was working for, I think he wanted me working on the vinyl cut graphics and doing that. So I sort of got into that type of work, and then he had to make me redundant because he lost work, and then I was like in the in-between space.
Yep.
So
we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. There were quite a few years of that sort of situation.
Yep.
But then
lean times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got a job at a company called Lexicon, which was a big signwriting company.
I was going to say, I know the name Lexicon.
Yeah, well, they did. When I came on board, they had the contract for Te Papa, all of the signage for them.
Yep.
We did all of the living park signage for Auckland Council Parks.
Oh, wow. Yep.
So I came on board like on the ground level in production team.
Yep.
Worked my way through everything because I like to learn everything and
I mean, sure, why not?
Get a bit bored if I have to do the same thing all the time. So I worked my way through and then did some night classes on Mac operating, and then I moved into the digital print team there, and then I was operating an electrostatic printer and doing all the colour correction, colour matching, pre-press stuff, and graphic laminating. But I was good with putting graphics on strange shaped objects. So
what are some of the stranger objects? Of course you had to know I was going to ask that question.
I had to do, like, people would want to make these prototype strange signs, like this big annoying one, which was this huge beer glass like a lion red. For lion red,
okay.
for all the pubs around New Zealand. So they wanted to put this graphic on this beer glass, so it's shaped like this, and it's not a perfect cylinder.
Yep.
So you had to have a design of a graphic that would curve all the way around, and that would also line up, and that was also able to be applied and stuck on.
How big are we talking?
Oh, probably about 1.5 meters high. So like an actual enormous.
That's a big glass.
Yeah. So things like that, or cars, or other strange,
like
really weird, like little fiddly things that people wanted written stickers on.
Oh, like promotional.
Yeah, strange
material
promotional things like that. But yes, so that was my interesting job.
Oh wow.
Yes, lots of things. So like graphics and on cars and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Northland Artist Conversation is incredibly proud to support Forum North. Forum North are such a gorgeous venue, and they're located in the heart of Whangarei CBD. They're a wonderful group of people that work there, and they work with incoming artists or local artists to make sure that they're helping put on the best show possible. They've got some different venue options that you can hire as well, and if you're interested in that sort of thing, I'd highly recommend you contacting them via the website or reaching out to them via Facebook as well. Northland Artist Conversation, really, really proud to support Forum North. So you're working doing graphic design, and this is you've kind of made your way up the ranks. And you've progressed to wrapping weird and strange objects.
Yes.
Is this what you consider to be your artistic expression, or are you doing art after hours or outside of this? And if so, what does that look like for you?
I was doing other things on the side.
Okay.
It was a lot of work. Like there was lots of overtime, so it was quite It was pretty a lot of deadlines and reasonably high pressure.
Okay, yeah.
But I really enjoyed doing a really nice job of what I was doing.
Okay.
I really liked it, and I liked working with colour and getting the colour right.
Yeah.
I felt really motivated to do a good job.
So essentially, you've gone from like the creating things when you were younger, drawing, designing, and essentially you've been able to parlay that into an actual career. Yeah,
I think so. It was. I really enjoyed aspects of the job, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I liked it because I could work with my hands and I could work with colour, and I was able to do some really interesting work.
Were you there for a while?
Yeah, I was there for a while, until my sort of early 20s.
Oh, wow.
I think I started when I was about 19.
Oh, okay, yeah, so definitely a few years.
Time has gone by. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And so I did that and travelled a little bit between times as well. While I was working there, I took some time out and travelled, and then came back and worked with them again.
Yeah.
And then they went out of business. So.
Oh no. Yeah.
So that was a bit sucky, and then I went and worked for Omni Graphics.
Okay.
Which is billboards and truck sides and.
So
bus backs.
But different this time around. Still design.
I probably would say it wasn't design, it was colour correction. So it's working with images and making sure that it's like looking at would sometimes work with artists. So I'd look at like a photograph.
Yep.
They would send a digital photograph of the physical photograph.
Yep.
And then I would pull that up on the computer, and I would make sure I've got the right colour profile to view the file, the photo file, the Photoshop file.
Yep.
And then I would visually compare what I see on screen with what the finished output needed to be.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's making sure that the colour translates to the final printed material.
Okay. Yeah.
So really tricky. You had to get your eye in.
I was going to say
types of jobs.
A very sort of fine eye for detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be terrible if you're colourblind.
Yeah, you wouldn't be doing colour correction if you're colourblind.
No.
Yeah.
So you're with them for a few years.
With the Lexicon for a few years, shorter time with Omni Graphics.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and then I had really bad RSI from working on a computer all the time.
Yep.
And basically my doctor said, you need to change your work the way that you're working.
Okay, yeah.
Which would mean less hours. And that wasn't so negotiable with the work that I was doing.
Yeah, don't imagine so.
Yeah, less hours, more breaks and all of that sort of thing, which was really not how the production floor was run.
Yeah.
At that time anyway.
Yeah.
And then I was like, so the doctor was basically, do that or retrain, because you're going to be, your head's going to be a bit fucked otherwise.
Yeah. It's okay to swear. Yeah. Drop an F-bomb if you need to.
Okay.
It's all right.
Yeah, no, so I was like, I've always wanted to go to art school. That's what I've always wanted to do.
Okay.
So I was like, maybe I'll retrain and go to art school. And then that'll stop me using my hands all the time, except that I didn't, because I keep making things with my hands. So that's...
of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so that was what was like the opportunity that came up.
Yep. Okay.
So
you go to art school. You're in...
I went to Whitecliffe. I went to both Elam. I went to Elam.
Yes.
And I went to Whitecliffe.
Okay.
For like interviews and submitted my portfolio.
Yep.
Elam were like, you haven't done 7th form. You don't have university entrance. You're going to have to do like a special course so that we know that you're going to be able to complete a university degree.
Right.
And I was like, okay. I've like worked and travelled. I've continued my art practice. I had a portfolio. Yeah. I was like, all right. Well, I went to Whitecliffe and had an interview with them there, and the admissions officer was basically like, yes.
Straight away.
We want you. You're the person. You're the kind of person we want. You know what you've done. You've worked. You've travelled. You've done all these things.
Bit of life experience.
I know, and I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So that was it, and I loved it.
So that's sort of your. So let me just see if I got the timeline right. So you go to Whitecliffe and you do the first part of the degree.
I did my undergraduate, so 4-year BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Okay. And then you do that. You walk out feeling, really good about yourself.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But but then where's a job for an artist? And I've got like a $30,000 student loan.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. I studied drama.
Yeah.
Yep.
Woo.
Not a lot of. Yep. It's nice walking away with a great big fat loan.
Yeah.
Not a lot of work. Everyone wants to be an actor though, so yep.
Yeah. So I still, but I kept doing like group shows. As a student, we would have like student group shows. We did exhibitions in St. Kevin's Arcade. There was a sort of a cool gallery space in there.
Okay.
There was Studio 123. I was involved in some group shows there as well.
Very cool.
And I did art direction for a play by Tom Sainsbury way back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, because we worked together at the Auckland Art Gallery. That was one of my side jobs after art school or during art school. I was working at the Auckland Art Gallery.
Wow, that would have been amazing.
It was really cool. It was a really casual job. It was working as an art interpreter, so taking school groups and children through.
Right.
So it was taking them through the gallery. Tom was one of the other guides. Among Eve Gordon, who actually is another performance artist from Dust Palace.
Wow.
We had really amazing people working there.
Yeah.
While we were studying, or we'd just finished our art school degree. So it's because where are you going to get work?
Well, you really you got to hustle, right?
Yeah, I got to hustle. So I was doing that, and then I was working at the Lido, and I learned to be a projectionist there, which was really fun because that was working with film.
Okay.
Before they went digital. Yep. So it's the Lido Cinema in Auckland. And I really loved that job. I loved editing and putting the film together because you get film from the film vault, and actual film from the film vault comes comes in reels, like 4 or 5 reels. And the special containers, and then you have to wind them all into this huge big projector with like 3 levels, and you splice it all together to make the feature film a feature film, otherwise it's in bits.
So. As someone who grew up going to the movies a lot, the very first film I ever went to see was Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah.
It's still my favourite film of all time. I always wondered how movies got put together because, 2-hour movie, if you go, it's 24 frames a second, the canisters must be massive. But so the film boat, and they're stored and they're transported in these shorter reels. Yeah.
And then once they get to the cinema, then they're reassembled. But yeah, they would be like about that wide they'd have these big round metal discs.
Yeah.
And the film runs from the top one, you thread it all through this machine that goes through the projector all the way up and then back onto the bottom disc.
Oh, wow.
And so that it winds itself off and on again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long were you working at the Lido for?
Maybe a year or so. I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old are you at this point?
I was in my 20s.
Mid, late, early?
Late 20s, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
When did I finish my degree? I was about 26 or something when I finished my degree.
Yeah.
Which seems so old at the time.
Yeah. I think I finished mine. I was about 26 as well. Mm-hmm. So it seems like a lifetime ago. I think about it now and I go, it really is a generation thing. A whole generation has passed from when I did that. Oh, I'm okay. I'm 47. I've got no issues talking about it. Turned 47 this year. It's fine. I'm old. I know it. What was it they say?
I don't know. I'm too young.
Embrace it. There you go. You wouldn't know. You're too young.
Yeah.
So you're still living in Auckland. When do you make the move to Whangarei? Is that something that sort of happens quite a bit down the track? Okay.
Quite a lot later. So it was maybe 5 years ago.
Oh, so it's really recent.
Really
wow.
recent, yeah.
Okay.
I still feel like an Aucklander.
Okay. I will not make any cheap digs at Aucklanders then.
It's okay.
I lived there for a number of years as well. I was a touring musician and, you know, I also used it as a place to further my work career as well. Great place for it, 100%. But yeah, you know, I moved to Whangarei, lovely coastal community. What brought you to Whangarei?
More affordable rent.
Yeah.
But still close enough to family and friends and all of my connections in Auckland. Yeah. So that was a big draw card. It was either Whangarei or Dunedin.
Okay, quite diametrically opposed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Different climates.
Yeah, very different climates.
Yeah.
But like my mum still lives in Snells Beach.
Oh,
so
lovely,
you
lovely.
know, so it felt like actually that feels close enough, and it's close enough for the kids to still be able to see her, and you can do a drive to Auckland and back in a day if you have to, or you know, it's not impossible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, as someone who moved from Auckland to Whangarei 6.5 years ago, because the rent down there is horrifically expensive. I think I was flatting in Glen Eden in a 3-bedroom place, and it was like $650 a week, which is horrific. And 6.5 years ago, so I don't even know what the rent is now. So 100% get why you moved up. When did you start doing these types of artwork?
The stitched selfies.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I started them in lockdown.
Okay.
So they pretty much, that was where it kicked off. So I was, like all of us, we were in the situation we'd never been in before.
Yep.
I was like Monday to Friday, just myself and my kids, and then they would go to their dads at the weekend, and that was pretty much the social situation.
Yep.
So and because with my masters I'd looked at relationships, and I'd looked at objects that connect in relationships.
Of course.
And so then the relationships that were right in front of me were me and my kids, and then I was also like actually just me and myself. And I was doing research with my kids on other artists, and we found this interesting YouTube video series. And one of the artists, of course, was Frida Kahlo, who came up.
Right, yeah.
And so for me, she's someone I've always appreciated her work, and some of her experiences I've identified with.
Yep.
So she was quite sick as a child.
I
had meningitis when I was 8, and I was hospitalised and isolated, and I had this quite extreme and unusual experience that many people won't ever experience something like that.
Yeah.
And I used to play with plasticine and play card games with my nana when she would visit. So or draw.
Okay.
So, and I was like, oh man, I'm doing these things. And so she had not a dissimilar experience as a young child. And then, of course, she's so well known for her self-portraits.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, of course, with my children, we were looking at these other artists who make self-portraits. And I was like, oh, I've never made self-portraits. Don't want to go there. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll just give it a go. Because I was taking selfies and, taking photos of where I was walking with, and sending them to my people I was missing and I loved and I couldn't be with. So I would send these photos. And I was thinking about the selfie has also been written or talked about as being like a social object. So you can have these digital social objects, which a meme is sort of like a social object.
Yes. Yep.
And selfies are also, they can be a bit denigrated. There's a bit of sometimes people are mocked a little bit for young women taking selfies or, people taking a moment and constantly documenting themselves. There's a lot of, there is some negativity associated with taking selfies.
Absolutely.
And so I was sort of thinking of this and cognizant of that as a woman in my 40s, and how different it is because it's a younger cultural thing.
Yes, I don't take a lot of selfies.
And they're also a short, they're a quick thing, with our digital.
Yep. Using our phones, we just
using our phones,
we
can just smash off all these photos and not really think about it. So I was looking at these selfies and I was like, I'll do a self-portrait. I can do it. It's no big deal. And so I started taking these photographs and editing them a bit, like just to try and reduce them to lines and try and figure out what was the essence of what I was seeing in the image.
Yeah.
And also because it was me, I didn't have any ethical concerns or anything to worry about.
No,
you're free, and this is a tradition that many women artists have used before they could go to art schools and academies. They would paint themselves and draw themselves because they weren't allowed to join the academy and draw or paint nude men.
Right.
Bit of a no-no.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like an art historical sort of context of the self-portrait.
Okay.
And so I was looking, selfies are a contemporary kind of self-portrait. Mm-hmm. And my medium that I often like to work in is textile.
Yep.
And I love drawing and I love stitch. So I started making these. They were a lot finer. There was a lot less detail in them.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I was really just sort of honing my craft.
Okay.
During that first big lockdown.
That was the one we sort of had where we were locked down for a couple of months, a couple of years ago, yeah?
Yeah, so 2020.
Yeah.
And so I was documenting my life during this time. Like I would be, all day with the kids and I had to deal with a headache or something. So I'd just step outside and just hang out for a bit and I'd take a photograph. Or I would go on my big walks. Like this one was, I don't think we talked about it, did we? So I used to do big long walks at the weekends in lockdown.
It's a great time to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you go on your big long walks.
Yeah, and so I did like a daily really long walk or I'll go cycling. But with this one, I would just walk out my door and walk for an hour and then turn around and come back. And I walked all the way up the back of Carmore, and this was on the way up to the cemetery and that little lake at the top.
Yes.
So I walked around all these streets.
Yeah.
And I would stop and it was freezing, and I would just stopped at the top and took some selfies while I was there.
Yeah.
And then it was quite an unusual image compared to some of the other selfies that I did. But anyway, it seemed like a good subject to stitch. Yeah. And I was really open and I was just experimenting. So I made a lot.
What do you think that you saw as an artist in the photo that made you go, you gravitating towards that one? Was there something about the setting, or was it something that you'd captured in your mood or your face, or was it something about the event as a whole? Because obviously we're in the middle of this lockdown and it never happened worldwide ever. Yeah. Is it a culmination of things? Is it one thing that you kind of went, yes, I see that and I'm going to translate that? What was it for you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
This one was a combination of things.
Okay.
Lockdown was hard, right, for lots of us for different ways.
It was a really hard slog for a lot of people.
This was a hard day.
Yeah.
But also I was feeling okay with that.
Yeah.
And it was quite, I felt really on my own at this time, and I was high up, right above Kamua, right above Whangarei.
Yeah.
It was an interesting place to be, and I liked it. It was cold and it was windy. There was something about that moment. So partly it was the moment, partly it was also looking back on the selfie as I would sort of go through and think, this one looks like an interesting image. There's something happening. I don't quite understand what's going on.
You're sort of drawn to it, though.
Yeah, I'm drawn to it somehow.
Yeah, okay.
Others were quite specific, like I took a selfie on my birthday and stitched it. Took a selfie on when the dad got divorced and stitched it.
Right, yeah.
Things like that. I was like, or, a friend of mine had messaged me and said, make sure you do one on this day.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no. I'm trying not to think too much about it. I just need to get it done. But I did. And so partly it was like marking a day.
Yeah. So essentially, like you're taking time to capture the moment and where you're at on that given day. That's obviously the purpose of a selfie in general, right?
Yeah, that was impetus for the selfie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'd captured your selfie and then you'd gone, I'm going to now translate that into a portrait, self-portrait.
Yeah, so there's an editing process. So I might have taken them and then gone, oh, God, I can't use that one. Or actually that looks, I felt so terrible on that day, but then I'll stitch it and I'll see. And some of them, like one of them particularly was, I feel like one of the most successful ones.
Nice.
And I think, that's because maybe it's just something relatable or something you can connect with. So.
Oh, that's amazing. And you've been doing this form of art now since lockdown, having really sort of discovered it. And even in 2 and a bit years, you've obviously had some amazing success.
Yeah, actually.
Because that's not a long period of time, and to be nominated as a finalist is incredibly impressive. If I do say so,
I guess so. I just sort of make my things,
yeah.
And I don't think too much about it. But there were 6 of the selfies stitched in lockdown that were in the Wallace Awards as well. So that was really exciting to have them as, again, another finalist in an exhibition.
Wow. Yep.
And that was really neat. And then that travelled also down to Wellington as part of their travelling exhibition after the Wallace Awards.
Okay.
So there's more than 30 of self-portraits that I've made. So I just keep going.
Wow.
And partly it's an ongoing process.
Is it I'm gonna ask a question. Is it a therapeutic type thing? Is there like a certain amount of therapy behind it? Because if they're photos that are based off selfies, you've kind of captured that present moment that you've been in, and then you've obviously taken the time to convert them from that digital image over to what we have in front of us. Is there therapy in that process and then the actual creation? It's a deep question, which is really unusual for me.
You're doing well. That's like your second big question.
Thank you.
I think that's... I don't have a clear answer on that, but what I would say is that for me, having a project, having something I'm working on, helps me with my mental health and helps me think. I have trouble sometimes with anxiety, and if I'm not walking enough, if I'm not moving enough, if I'm not putting that energy somewhere, I don't do as well as I can.
Okay.
So, but I wouldn't call it art therapy. I have a little bit of not a problem with art therapy or calling art therapy.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes it puts it into a box.
Sure.
And
they
so
can categorize something like quite small. Yeah.
And I think that it can be really useful. I like making things. I like using my hands.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's part of what I do.
Yeah.
And I know when I need to do a project.
Yeah, and you've obviously been doing it for such a long period of time as well that it's your outlet.
Yep.
It's kind of what keeps you going, from when you were in school, all the way through to time with the grandparents, all the way through to even in your employment time as well. And then when you're in lockdown now, you're still essentially creating and exploring different mediums and trying different things, discovering, because some artists, they have done one thing their whole life and that's all they've done. They're amazing at it. And then you've got some that will sort of float in and out of different mediums because, and they'll always excel in those mediums. I'm jealous of people that can do that. And, at any given point in time in their life, they go, well, at this time I was doing this, and this moment of your life right now, this is what you're sort of focused on.
It's one of the things that I work on. So I tend to work on multiple things. I think what it is with art therapy that just came to me when you're thinking is that I think, like, sometimes I've had people say, oh, this is just you're just doing this for the love of it, or what a lovely hobby. And for me, and I'm like, it's not like, this is not my hobby. This is my work.
Yeah.
And so I guess for me, like, things might be considered a form of therapy if you do it as a hobby, or,
of course,
potentially.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, there's a place for art therapy and therapy through art.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that might be that space that I feel like my practice fits in.
Yeah.
Because it's my work. I'm not working on a hobby.
Yeah.
This is my profession.
Yeah. And
I guess.
I was going to say profession's probably the more apt word, because this is something that you've been focused on now for such a long period of time. It's like a hobby's something that you just do for fun and you don't take it too seriously. But if you're doing this and it's your focus and it's going out and it's being finalist for big awards, then it's more than a hobby. It's a passion.
So yeah, that's probably distinction.
Art passion. Not art therapy, art passion. So you're in Whangarei. You've been here for 5 years. We've had the horrific worldwide thing that was lockdown, and COVID swept through us all. You're part of a collective, is that right?
Yes.
Tell me about that, because I've always been fascinated about collectives, and is it like one specific style of artists that come together, or a different group of artists? How did you all meet?
We're called Collective Practice.
The Collective Practice?
We're called Collective
Practice.
Yep.
No,
That's okay.
Yeah.
And we came together after I got some funding and offered some mentoring workshops for artists in Northland. So
Excellent.
Yeah, I came up with a proposal and sent it through to Creative Northland.
Yeah.
And they were able to partly fund it.
Okay, yeah.
But also said they'll support me to write an application to Creative Communities, Whangarei District Council's Creative Communities, to gather the rest of the funds to make sure that I could be paid properly for that.
Yeah.
And my application was successful for the funding.
Congratulations.
And so, thank you. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Doing the funding applications, and my goal was to provide artists with what I loved the most about art school, which was and it's something that I knew I missed and other artists missed after art school, which is coming together with artists, talking about your work, getting some critical feedback, just hanging out, and getting to know each other and getting to hear what you're working on and supporting each other. Whether that just means you're just someone they talk through their ideas with, or you collaborate to make an exhibition or do a project.
How many of you are in the collective?
There are 6 of us at the moment.
Okay.
I started, my workshops were for 10 weeks, 2 hours a week. We started out at Creative Northland. But we had to go online, which was fine. And there were 6 of us at the start, which is where I capped it at.
Yep.
And I had more than twice the number of artists who were keen.
Oh, wow.
As soon as I put it out just on my Instagram,
Yep.
I got heaps of great feedback.
Yep.
Obviously, artists wanted and needed it.
Absolutely.
And part of what I was offering was creative and critical feedback on your studio practice, as well as really practical skills for living and working in the arts.
Right, yeah.
Which is not a very sustainable industry for artists.
Definitely not.
So I was like, we're going to cover writing funding applications. We're going to cover writing a good bio. We're going to cover writing a statement.
Yeah.
We're going to go through the process of writing a project proposal.
Oh, okay.
We're going to do all of these things that, if you're wanting to get your work out there as an artist outside of an institution,
yes,
that may not be well supported by our artist institutions, these are the things that are really useful to know how to do.
Yeah.
So that's what I started with, and that's what we worked through.
Yeah.
For that 10 weeks, and then it was my plan was to offer a group exhibition at the end.
Sure.
Creative Northland had a space, but it wasn't the right kind of space for the artists and what they were wanting to make.
Right.
So at the outset, I thought this is actually going to be more than 10 weeks. This might be maybe 6 months.
Okay.
Might be a bit longer, but for me, I was like, I'm committed to doing it.
Yeah. I
want this to happen, and I really believe in my artists. And they're awesome. So we're going to do this.
Yep.
Whatever it takes, we'll get it done.
Amazing.
And one of our artists was unable to continue. She had a lot of other family and work pressures come on.
Some personal things sort of pop up in their life.
Which is what happens in life.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Something that I knew, was always a possibility. I've worked in lots of community groups and with other people, and these things happen.
Yep.
So we decided to continue. I wasn't working with them every week. Yep. So we just stretched it out to something that was sustainable to do in a voluntary capacity.
Okay.
And then we've just taken down our final exhibition. Fast forward right up to now, we took down our exhibition from Rayburn House Gallery. Yes. Which was on just for June this year.
Right, yep.
So we got to the end, we made our exhibition. The artists, we went through the process of writing a funding application to cover the exhibition costs, printing costs, through Creative Communities, and our application was successful.
Awesome.
I made them all write a bio.
Yeah.
I made them do the shitty jobs, and also helped them a lot along the way. Artists are not, if people make with their hands, or they paint or they make or whatever they do, they're not necessarily going to be strong with written word.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
And that's something that I can do fine. I can do it easily for other people.
Yeah, there's... I was watching a really fascinating documentary last night called Artifact, which is about a band and their journey through the music industry. And there was one key quote that I thought was really interesting. It's music business, right? And artists tend to look at the music, but don't focus on the business. And that's sort of where they let themselves down. And as someone who's been an actor and been a musician, you have to know the business side of things. You can't just create and go, I'll put it out into the world and it will be amazing. That does happen for some people, but there's often a lot of work that actually has to go on in the background, like funding applications. We're going to be going for funding applications.
Good.
We need to. We've got some really clear long-term goals that we want to achieve. Funding applications for us. And even when we sort of started up this whole project, there was a lot of stuff in the back end that I had to teach myself how to do, because I didn't know of groups like what you have. Had I known this about August last year, it probably would have saved me a lot of grief and heartache. Thank you very much. Because that sounds exactly like the sort of thing that a lot of artists should embrace, because they may not know all the info. Like, if they want to go for this grant, how do they apply for it? What wording do they need to use? How do they need to structure everything?
Yeah.
All of those sorts of things are really important and quite often overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a huge process. But the thing with working together, and we decided, or maybe I decided, we became a collective. Because I was like, we're going to stick together. We're really good. I love working with my artists, and they're all awesome artists. We have a variety of different skills between us. So for artists, if you can't, if we struggle with the writing or the promo stuff or the media, we've got to collaborate. We've got to work together. And so that's a really key part of how I like to work, and what the mentoring workshops allow.
Definitely.
And facilitates really easily.
And are the mentoring workshops going to continue?
Yes, although I don't have the details, but Creative Northland and Whangarei District Council are funding 2 more workshop series.
Congratulations.
Which is really awesome. And so I'm still sorting out the details, but there'll be one before the end of this year and one in the new year.
Are they sort of going to be around that 10-week mark again, or are they going to... have we sort of worked out we maybe need to be a little bit longer?
I want to work with artists over the course of a year. That would be my dream.
That would be amazing.
You have that continuity, you get to know your artists.
Yeah.
The artists get to experiment. So I've encouraged the artists to start a new project or pick up something they've been wanting to work on.
Yeah.
Something so all of the artists, they had something they were doing, which was important.
Okay.
And they had a commitment to their practice. And I knew what their work was. So I did a bit of research on them because I wanted to know who they are, what they do, what their practice is like, and how they work. Can I count on them? Having gone through art school, I know that artists, we can be incredibly unreliable and fickle. So I wanted to know...
Stop it, not an artist.
No, it's outrageous. I wanted to know how much I was getting myself into. You know what I mean? And that's fine, because I'm really happy to support people if I know that they're going to, that's appreciated and reciprocated. So that was really important for me to know who I was working with and know that they're committed. I mean, it's like if you apply to do an art degree, you've got to show that you're prepared to do the work. So that's what I was looking for with my artists. And I was really glad that we were able to work together for a year, because they were able to take on new projects, try new things, experiment, make mistakes, and then do better, which is what we need to be able to do as artists to get better and learn.
Absolutely. And, if you surround yourself with people that you're comfortable with and are willing to critique and talk openly, that makes the whole process...
Yeah, and it's really important. And, my master's was 2 years, my undergraduate was 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time to get to know people and get to trust people and know that, and they get to know you and your work. And that you can trust what they say, or they have good intentions. Yeah. So for me, it was like, I want these people to succeed. Yeah. And I want to, I want them to do well. So that's what my motivation is.
It's amazing. So... obviously you don't have the finalised details yet, but if artists want to keep it on the radar, how do they find out?
You can follow me on all the usual social channels. So on my Instagram, I have a Facebook page. I have 2 blogs. I have my original blog, which is still going. I have my master's research blog, which is where I publish some writing. But probably my social media Instagram is probably best.
So social media, your Instagram one is...
Pretty Mermaid's Purse.
There we go, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And your Facebook one is...
Angela Rowe Artist, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
simple. They link together.
I love how they do that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Angela... We've come to the end. I know, it's hard to believe, eh? And almost an hour has gone by. It's amazing. Thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with us today and taking time out of your schedule. We really appreciate it. It's always so fascinating to learn more about people that are in the community and who they are and what they do and the journey that that got them from point A to point B, because it's not just about the destination. The journey is often the most exciting part. So thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Angela Rowe.
Yeah.
Man, what a fascinating conversation that was with her.
Yeah, hearty. Her career path's been a bit out of it too. Kind of went way up, your graphic design and stuff, and doing all of that. And then to find herself in the medium she is now, it's kind of cool.
And it's interesting because early on in the podcast, she talks about how she designed a poster to save the blue whales. And I think she said she was young, like single digits, like 8 or 9 or somewhere around there. And then she ends up in the graphic design industry. Doing, essentially what she'd done as a kid. I thought that was like a really interesting journey. And then she is in fine arts school, and then she leaves that, and then she goes on and does a few other things, and then she ends up in Whangarei, and then she completes her master's in fine arts, which is a huge accomplishment in itself. I think anyone that achieves a master's in anything. It
was quite funny when she brought up the title of that exhibition. That rung a bell because I'd been going to NorthTec.
Yeah.
And so that's only just wrapped. And I wondered where I'd heard that before when she said it. And I was like, where it was.
That was the one at Rayburn House.
No, in Jeff Wilson Gallery.
Jeff Wilson Gallery, that's the one. Yeah.
So, really cool to connect those dots. And
I know.
Kind of odd to cross that path as well.
Yeah. And, just such a fascinating insight into her experiences in art as well, and then her bringing all of that massive depth of knowledge that she's got from Auckland, bringing that to Whangarei as well, starting her own collective, which is really, really cool, and then sort of building on it from there.
Yeah, for sure. And keep your eye out because you're going to be offering some more courses or workshop type stuff in that kind of medium that she's doing as well.
We'll in the podcast she says to keep an eye on her social media. Her social medias will actually be in the podcast, so make sure you check those out if you're interested. It's a mentorship program. And she brings all the business experience side of things, like funding, applications, bios, project management processes, all of that sort of stuff. Which is a huge thing for Northland because I hadn't really heard of anyone doing anything like that. I mean, Creative Northland are amazing at what they do, but she kind of brings that to that sort of next level.
Yeah, hearty.
Which is amazingly cool. Speaking of social medias, where can people find all of this podcast?
So for our visuals, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram at the Northern Artist Conversation. For audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. That's under the Northern Artist Conversation as well. And if you want to get in touch with us, if you're an artist in the region or coming into the region, our email is hello@northernartistconversation.co.nz.
Yeah, nice and easy, man. Yeah, super simple. And if you are someone that wants to do a little bit more than just like, share, subscribe, or tick a like on Facebook or do a little love heart, we also have Patreon as well. Patreon is the opportunity for you, the listener or viewer, to actually give back to the podcast. We have 2 tiers. The first tier is called A Cup of Coffee, and that's $5 a month. And then the second tier is called Coffee Addict, and that's $20 a month. And the Coffee Addict tier, that gives you just a few little extra perks and bits and pieces that you don't get in that first tier. So it's patreon.com/Northern Artist Conversation. It's really good. So it's a tiny amount as well, and you can kind of come and go from it as you want, but it's any support we get is always appreciated.
Hugely
appreciated. And I would also say to people, don't be afraid to share on your social media platforms as well, because we're growing at quite a nice sort of steady rate as well. So the more podcasts we do, the more people that we reach, the more we encourage them to share, the more we grow, the more guests we have, which is just a good thing all around.
Yeah, really. Also a big one. If you're on YouTube and you're watching us right now, hit that subscribe for us.
Subscribe.
I've always wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Get that off my chest, Rocky.
On YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And actually, the other thing, if you listen to podcasts through Apple, please leave us a review, because what that does is in the algorithm that actually starts edging us up towards the top. I only just found that out. So, super cool. Anything big planned for the weekend?
This weekend,
I mean, we had the rugby last weekend.
Yeah. We do have plunge, but we're not sure when this is going to be kind of...
Yeah, so this podcast will probably go out, and plunge pop culture convention will have been done and dusted. So hopefully 2 thumbs up. Aru, hopefully you've done an amazing job and it's been a huge success. It has been for the last few years, and we're incredibly excited to be part of it again this year. So thanks very much for inviting us. But that's really about it, eh?
Yeah, well, the weather's really not very good this week.
So. Yeah, weather's really naff.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to the 61 hours that apparently we reported of solid rain.
Awesome.
That's just going to be fun. Straight down that camera. My name is Mark Kelly.
And I am Andrew McKenzie.
And thank you very much for sticking around for the North and Mars conversation. We'll see you guys soon.